Talking with the experts.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's why it's really important when you have a call with somebody or a meeting that you do find out any doubts that they have. And so I have a whole process that I take people through before I even make any kind of offer to them, because one, I want to find out, do I want to work with this person? Because I may be working with this person for a few months. So I don't want to do that with someone I don't like, or whose philosophy or ideas is very contrary to something I want to support. But two, are they going to be someone that's going to feel comfortable working with me? And so I have to make that decision. Once that's decided in the call, then it's a matter of I make the offer. I will lay out the system for them, and then I want to know, each element I go through, does that make sense? Does that seem like something you would need or not? And if I hear a hesitation, I go, well, maybe you don't need that part.
Talking with the experts.
Hello and welcome to Talking with the Experts. My name is Rose Davidson from rosesdavidson.com, and Talking with the Experts is about all things business by business owners for business owners, and you can find it on all good podcasting streaming platforms and on YouTube. And I would love it if you would go over to the YouTube channel, click on the subscribe button. Don't forget to click on the bell as well so that you know when my next video is uploaded. Today, my special guest is Rodney Daut, and Rodney likes to show you how to immediately improve offers for your products and services using just 3 elements. Now, he's honed his marketing skills that he started in 2001 when he used his contrarian approach to help a husband and wife coaching team who were struggling financially to create a waiting list of clients. Since then, he's helped create and sell one-on-one coaching, dozens of courses, workshops, and even 5-figure programs. Wow. His approach is contrary to what many marketers recommend, and he dispenses with lengthy preparations to get a business started and instead gets new coaches and consultants to jumpstart in a month. He doesn't believe in selling cheap products to get a client's foot in the door. Instead, he shows entrepreneurs how to make high-value offers to prospects immediately. He doesn't believe they need to master social media or content creation to get their first clients, and he shows them how to make their first sales using only their network. His approach to business building is gutsy and engaging, but most of all, it works, and it works quickly. Welcome, Rodney. How are you today?
Great. How are you? Thanks for that introduction.
It was a pleasure. It was good to know about you. Now, tell me a little bit how you came into this business in 2001.
So I was actually a public school teacher, and I, got to know some coaches. There were things I wanted to work on in my life, and they were able to help me. And I thought, wow, this stuff's amazing, but they admitted that they weren't actually, getting that many clients. And I thought, really, it's crazy with the results you're providing people. And it wasn't just me, it was other people. I went to workshops that they held, and people were having magical experiences. They were having all sorts of things happen, actual real change in their lives. And so I ended up doing research to say, look, we've got to find a solution. So I did research on small businesses, how successful small businesses market themselves. And I hit on the idea we need to come up with a niche offering. And this is 20 years ago, so it's 2001. And that wasn't really talked about a lot, except it's in some small circles. And so I helped them come up with a niche offering, which was to deal with fear of public speaking. And they have a fantastic methodology to change people's emotional responses So, but just saying, look, I help you change your emotions. That's not, it didn't roll off the tongue or anything. So we ended up crafting this offer where they would help people get their fear of public speaking down to almost nothing in 4 1-hour sessions. Now, whenever they would talk about that, people would go, oh, that's interesting. Even if they didn't have the issue, they'd be like, oh, that's something. And they would get referrals, they would get new business, and that they eventually were able to get a waiting list of clients because they couldn't handle all of it. And they ended up having to bring on 2 other coaches they had trained to handle some of the clients as well. So it was a pretty marvelous change for their business.
Absolutely. Wow. Because I remember we owned a food retail business back in 2001, and marketing those days was, letterbox drops and network meetings, and, internet wasn't that well known then. And social media honestly was just like for kids. It wasn't for businesses.
Exactly. Well, here's the funny thing now, though. Now, because everybody thinks the money's in the internet, the money actually is in all that other stuff, because hardly anyone does it. I mean, the people that do it are like restaurants and things, but if you're selling a professional service, nobody's even bothering to really put in the effort to do network marketing really well, to actually meet people, doing things like presentations. Presentations have sold products for thousands of years. If you're in a room and you teach, everyone has been trained since they were a child. The person in the room teaching is the expert. Listen to that person. They know what they're talking about. As long as you actually do know what you're talking about, it works to your favor. And then when you try to sell them something, they're much more open. On the internet, the idea we have is there's a lot of hucksters on the internet. We should distrust whoever that is. And so the advantage is to being live and in person. Even though I help people do things online, it's so much easier to make the sales in person. The more intimate the gathering, the easier it is.
Yeah.
Whereas people, but they think the money's in the internet. So.
Well, the last 18 months, I think internet's,
yes,
fortunately and unfortunately, it's the way you have to go. And, a lot of people now are getting into hybrid events now once they're out of lockdown. Yes. So I think that's going to be the way moving forward in the future for any kind of marketing will be hybrid, because or presentations or talks, conferences, whatever. It saves a lot of money to do it online. Yes, this is true. You don't have traveling, you don't have venues, you don't have all sorts of things. But
exactly. It's a good point. There's a big advantage to doing things online. You can reach more people, especially if you're in a niche where, like, if you live in a small town and you have certain ideas, like you want to sell coaching services or you want to sell, that's really hard to do in a small town. It's not impossible, but it's much harder to do. So it really depends on the type of business that you're in. But if you can have an angle for your service that would allow you to serve the people in your local area, you could end up being the king of that in your local area. Whereas online, it's really hard to be the king or the queen of your niche, but in your local area, it's much more possible. So if possible, yes, but obviously there's times when it doesn't make sense. Like in that fair public speaking business, we started out with the people in their network, but then eventually we did go online for AdWords. So sometimes that is what you need to do.
Yeah, I guess so. So what are the 3 steps that they should do to get more visible in their marketing?
So the first thing you want to do, there's a lot of people that put the cart before the horse. Oh, I have to create a funnel, I have to create a website, I have to create this, I have to create that. And I say, and then let's say you have all those things, what are you selling? Oh, well, I figured out along the way. Yeah, you could do that, but it's much easier if you start with the offer. So the first thing we do is create the offer, and I'll say, okay, what is the problem that you're helping people solve? So that's the first step. What is the problem? And well, there's 10 problems. No, just one. Choose one. Doesn't mean that you can't solve others, but there's one. Second thing is you want to figure out what is the finish line. What is the result? So like with the fear of public speaking, the problem was fear of public speaking. That was pretty clear. But what was the end result? On a scale of 0 to 10, no matter what your fear is now, it could be a 10 or an 8 or 9. By the end, it'll be a 2 or lower. That's the finish line. We have to define it, make it clear, because people are like, well, everyone says I'll overcome this or that, but what is that? It's vague. Make it clear as you can. And then the third thing is your system. How do you know, you have a system that helps you deliver results on a consistent basis. So you want to give them the steps and explain why each step is there and why it's important. Now, what the mistake a lot of people make is they go with their system first. I was just talking to somebody whose email had, we have the 9-step neuro movement system. And I'm like, what is that? Well, it's for kids with special needs. Yeah. And doing what with them? Well, it improves their learning. Oh, now we're getting somewhere. Tell me more. Is it overcoming like learning challenges that they have? But naturally experts will tell you the details, the system, and not always give you the outcome. And they're like, but isn't that obvious? I'm like, no, it's not. You have to define it. And because a lot of the people in most fields don't do it, you have an advantage when you do it. When you lay out the problem, when you lay out the positive outcome, the result, and then you lay out the system after that, only after that. By the way, sometimes when you lay out the first 2 elements, if their mouth's already watering, stop talking and just let them say yes. You don't necessarily, if they don't care about the system, then forget about it. You care about it, but if they're like, so how do I get started? And you're like, well, let me tell you the system first. No. No,
that will lose you the sale straight away, because they're not interested in the system. They just want to get the results.
That's all they care about as a result. And for some people, there are some people who are detail oriented who want to know, what are you going to do with me? And I've had that happen before. There was a person who I used to be all about just get at the problem and the solution. And I thought that would do it with all the time. But then I had a client or a potential client who said, and then so at the end of that time I'm working with you, what will I have? And I was like, well, you'll have the outcome you were looking for. Nope, she wanted to hear a system like that. I had a process. But that's only after her mind was opened by the other stuff. Does she now say, okay, what am I gonna have? What are you gonna take me through that gets me there? Because maybe I've heard this promise before.
Yeah.
And so I want to know why your approach is different, why it's better. Okay. And that, by the way, when somebody gets to that point, they're already sold on the basic outcome. So if you really play your cards right, you're probably got a client, So there's people who get defensive when they hear that. I say, no. The fact that they're giving you any kind of objections or questions like that means they're interested. That's not a knock on you or anything you've said. That means they're actually interested. So stick with the conversation.
Yeah. And, potential clients can be quite difficult, and they could take you and make you, go through the whole process when they're really not interested. But yeah, they may have been burnt before by somebody else, and they want to know that they're going to be spending their money with the right person. So
Well, and that's why it's really important when you have a call with somebody or a meeting that you do find out any doubts that they have. And so I have a whole process that I take people through before I even make any kind of offer to them, because one, I want to find out, do I want to work with this person? Because I may be working with this person for a few months. So I don't want to do that with someone I don't like, or whose philosophy or ideas is very contrary to something I want to support. But two, are they going to be someone that's going to feel comfortable working with me? And so I have to make that decision. Once that's decided in the call, then it's a matter of I make the offer. I will lay out the system for them, and then I want to know, each element I go through, does that make sense? Does that seem like something you would need or not? And if I hear a hesitation, I go, well, maybe you don't need that part. And then they start telling me what they tell me. Oh, someone tried selling me something like this before, and this is what happened. And I say, oh, can you tell me why you think that didn't work? And that's the thing people don't do. They try telling you how they're different already. I say, no, let's diagnose it. I'm a coach. Let me find out. Well, what happened? What do you think didn't work there? Then they find out and they go, now it could be that it's something I can solve or not. If I can't, and I say, that's a fundamental problem that's beyond what I do, then that's good to let them know. And they're like, really? You're not going to help? Well, if it's a medical issue or something, I don't deal with that. If it's certain types of clinical issues, I don't necessarily deal with that. But if it's something in the mechanics of business and marketing, yes, I can help you with that. Or even if it had to do with motivation, I can help you with that. But if it's there's certain other things that maybe are not appropriate. So it's good to find out what that is. And you always want to diagnose. And if the person resists finding out that, then I say, sounds like you don't want me to delve into that. Is that right? Yeah. All right. So since there's some kind of obstacle there and you don't want to talk about it, this is probably not the time for you to delve into something else that would face the same obstacle you're not willing to deal with right now. And so that's totally fine. And so if you feel fine to leave it at that, that's fine. But I just feel like you never should push people. And if you don't push them, they'll reveal to you the truth of what's really bothering them. And be honest. I've said to people, you know what? I don't think this is for you at this time. Maybe that will change later. And tell me if you think I'm wrong, because I could be wrong. And I've had someone tell me that I was wrong. And so I say, okay, let me hear it. I know. And other people say, yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, this isn't right for me. But yeah, and the other thing is, here's how you know you've had a great call if they say no. If they still think that people they know should work with you. If they refer other people to you despite, that means that you've left it in a good place, because nobody would refer someone that they thought was going to pressure their friends or make them feel bad or feel dumb or anything like that. So that means you handled it well. If they still say, hey, this is a great guy and I would work with him if it was the right time or the right moment or the right, I was in the right place. So, and then I've had people months later come back to me. That's another sign, but you don't see that till months later where they're like, okay, I think I'm ready. Okay, great, let's go.
Okay, so what makes your approach so contrary then?
The fact that I'm always about, how do you get your next customer right now? Let's forget about all this preparation stuff. Let me build this website. Let me create business cards. Let me do this X, Y, and Z. No, you don't need to do that in the beginning. In the beginning, get one client. You'll discover in that process what's really in the way. And I've got clients without having a website. I didn't have a website for years. I still have a website, and a bunch of my clients have never seen it because it's not relevant. Only time people see my website is, I do a presentation someplace or I do a podcast. And it's like, now you need a website to send people to. So that's contrary to what a lot of people say. A lot of people also say, okay, sell your solution to people. Let's tell them why your widget is so great. And I'm like, no, tell them, get into what their problem is. And other people will say, find out every single problem they have and list all these pain points. And I'm like, no, just one. You go into one in depth, what that problem is, what are the consequences is, why it's so difficult. And people are like nodding their head. You will see it. I've seen this in presentations when I go through a problem and all the people are like, yeah. But if you just list a bunch of stuff, they've barely got a chance to really get into it before you get to the next sentence, which is a different item on that list. So those are things that are contrary about my approach. Oh, and then my dealing with objections is another. How I see objections as a positive thing, as that meaning the person actually has some interest, that they've bought into the major premise of what you're saying. Doesn't mean they bought into you or your solution, but they bought into the premise. Or otherwise, because I just, you know what you say if someone, a telemarketer calls you, no thanks, I'm not interested. But I had one telemarketer call me who I said, I'm busy, I don't have time for this. And he said, okay, can I ask you one question? Then we can go if you don't like it. Hear what you hear. Okay. He said, if I could save you 30% on your phone bill, would you be interested in talking further? And I said, okay. And he said, do you have a phone bill? Yeah, I got a phone bill out. He showed me how I could save 30%. I signed up and changed phone companies. So if you have an objection, my objection was I don't have time. He's like, look, it's going to take 5 minutes just to do this. Okay, let's do it then. All right, if you really think you can save me 30%. And he did. It was like 37% or something.
So, that's all right. It's better than a break in the eye with a blunt stick, that's for sure.
Exactly. So, in that case, if you have to make sure that you really are respectful of the objection. And I've had people who, when telemarketers would call and they would say, I'd say, I'm really busy. And they'd say something mean to me. Well, obviously that's not going anywhere. And I once tried to find the company so I could talk to them and tell them, you have a person that should not be working there.
No, I hate telemarketers. Drive me nuts.
But I mean, that was the one telemarketer that I actually did business with it, because he was just like, well, if I can do this for you, would it be worth your time? Okay. So, but my main point is objections should never be dealt with in any way that's pushy. I've heard coaches say, practice lines that I find to be distasteful, where they'll actually say something like, I'll try kind of think of something. Problem is I don't like these things. I don't remember them, but people who've been on these calls will probably recognize it. Oh, maybe you're not committed enough or something like that. I don't.
Oh, yes.
Say
Don't
that,
you love that? Don't you
Yeah,
love that? That gets my hackles up straight away, I think.
Exactly.
How can you dare say that? I just told you I don't have time to talk about it. But,
Exactly.
you haven't offered me the opportunity to get a call back.
Exactly. And that's the other thing too, is they'll say, oh, get them to make a decision right now. And I've been in sales training before, and they'll always say that. Someone says, let's talk later. Don't, because that's really them putting you off. So what I say is, because that happens sometimes where we're out of time and they haven't made a decision or they're really not ready. And I've had people say, I need time to think about it. And I'll say, okay. And I'll say, before we go though, is there any question that you would be thinking about? Then I could think about it too. And sometimes they have a question and they tell me, and I say, well, if you want, I can answer that now. Or you could wait till we talk later, and then we'll actually set an appointment. I won't just leave it up in the air, because if you set an appointment, okay, now we're serious. We're going to do this. And I've sold lots of people on the second call because they really did need time to think and sort it through in their mind, and you could not make them do it at that moment. But because I didn't pressure them, they were willing to actually show up for that second call. So that's another thing I do, which I teach all of my coaching clients, is have the second call. It's not a failure that they didn't make a decision now. It's if they're actually scheduling that call with you and they show up for it, that's success already, because that means you handled the first call well.
Yeah, and they've showed some interest in whatever it is that you're trying to sell them. So it makes sense, and it does, because and nobody likes to be pressured on the first call, especially if they've got things to think about. They might not be the decision maker financially in the household or the business, and and so it makes sense to have that second call, so that the person that you're trying to sell to has the opportunity to discuss whatever it is with whoever they need to speak to.
Exactly. And then there's another factor, which I just realized too. Because I'm teaching people marketing, they're going to think to themselves, he's going to teach me to market the way he does. And if I pressure them, they're going to be like, oh, I'm going to have to pressure people too. Oh, no. Because my guarantee is it's the no yuck guarantee, which is we're not going to do anything you find yucky. Nothing sleazy, nothing that's distasteful or immoral or unethical. Everything's honest, above board. And that's how I treat them. And that's how I, kind of expect that they will treat their clients as well. And so, treat everybody how you want to be treated. But at the same time, when you have the client, you do hold their feet to the fire to whatever they've committed to. So they show up to the call, their work's not done. I don't berate them, but I say, okay, we need to figure out what to do differently this week so that those things get done. Otherwise, our time here isn't going to produce a return for you. Yeah. So, The
marketing and it's a touchy subject, really. I think people teach it in such different ways, and and you go and you learn one way and you think, well, I didn't really like that because it was sleazy, and you feel salesy, and I personally hate making someone feel salesy. I hate feeling salesy. If someone wants my services, I'm as honest as the day is long, and sometimes I say stuff honestly that's to my detriment and I lose a sale. But I can't not be truthful to say, well, it's not really what I do, but I'll give it a go, because I just don't like to be untruthful.
Well, the thing is it helps because it helps in so many ways to be truthful. One, just for our own heart and soul, right? Just to be truthful. That's the most important thing. But the other thing is it's your reputation. Oh, I know if I talk to Rose is going to tell me the truth, and she doesn't have expertise in an area. She's going to be honest about it. But that means that I believe you when you do say you're an expert, because I know that you know there's certain things that you don't do, and you probably know what you do well. So that's really helpful to your reputation, to your credibility.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I just hate it. I just hate it. That's why I don't market very much. I just get referrals because I just don't like the fact that I have to ring people and perhaps tell a lie or something. No, not me.
No, well, you should never tell a lie. I always tell people never ever tell a lie and never hide the stuff. Now you can change the meaning of things, but not hide it. So what do I mean by that? I have a friend who teaches a course, and he calls it it's a course on article writing. He calls it the toughest article writing course in the world. He's making that sound like a good thing. You see, but you can be honest. Here's what it's required. It's really difficult. But this is why it's so great, is because it's so difficult. But you change the meaning of it. Now, guess what? The people he gets in his course are mentally prepared for a really big challenge. If he made it sound easy, maybe he'd make the sale, but then all these people would wash out. They wouldn't finish the program because it's like 3 months long and it's very intense. It's like every day they're doing something. So ultimately, there's another guy I knew. Gosh, I can't remember his name. Matt Fury. He was a guy he taught bodybuilding and all that type of stuff and martial arts. And yeah, he would do the same thing. He'd be like, all these marketing courses are saying, tell them how easy it is. He's like, my guys don't want something easy. They want the burn. They want to know that this is going to push them to their limits. I'm not going to tell them it's easy. So, but I was trained when I took copywriting training. I mean, that's what they would say. Tell them it's easy. And I just felt a little weird. I was like, but what if it's not?
It could be easy for some people and not for others.
Yeah, and if it's easy, maybe they didn't need the program, right?
So with this beautiful contrary approach to marketing, have you written a book on it yet?
No. You know what? That's something I do need to get around to doing, actually, is writing a book on it. I used to teach test prep 20 years ago, and then I wrote a book on that. But the test that I taught test prep for, they stopped offering it in 2014. So, but my book is still available on Amazon, surprisingly, despite the fact that the test no longer exists. But I should write a book on it and put a bunch of case studies. I mean, I have a free report that's on my website. I have multiple free reports. So eventually I'll need to put together a book. I'll probably do that at some point, but not yet.
I've noticed you've got a couple of YouTube channels. Do you want to explain to us what they are, please?
Most of them were probably experiments. I had one that was a service I was going to offer to help teams work better. So the courses that I lead today are all based on a group model. And so I've developed ideas about how you get a group to gel together, get a group of strangers to get to know each other and like each other and work together. So I had experimented with doing that, but then I didn't put too much more into it. And then I have my self-influence channel, which I don't really promote, but every so often when I do a presentation, I'll upload it there. And so there's marketing presentations, but most of them are on unlisted. So I don't even know if you could see that they're there.
Okay.
And then there's a channel that I helped my brother set up. My brother is like this massive bodybuilder guy, totally natural. And he's actually won competitions, even though he's an old man in that world now, though, because he's over 30. And I helped him develop something called, what do we call it? Lift at Home, something like that. I can't remember what it's called. It's got a catchy name, but basically it's how do you do all it. He's got 4 kids and the 5th one on the way, and he's been able to maintain his physique even though he does not get to go to the gym. So how does he do it? Well, he's got this whole setup at home. And so basically his whole YouTube channel is how do you set that up so you can be as muscular as you can be without being able to get out to the gym. So yeah, and he's quite big. Yeah, because and that was especially important during COVID. Yeah. Because in the early days of COVID, when we didn't even understand what was happening, it was like just stay indoors and just don't go anywhere. And plus the places were all closed. How are you going to build up your muscle or keep your muscles big if you can't go to the gym? And so that was what his was all about. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right.
Lift anywhere.
So you don't have a podcast?
I do not have a podcast. No. I write articles. For Medium. I do a lot of writing. Instead of I guest on podcasts, but I don't actually have a podcast. Yeah.
It's better than nothing, I suppose.
Yes.
Okay, Rodney, where can people find you?
You can find me at selfinfluence.net. So it's all one word, no hyphens or anything, selfinfluence.net. And you can see my homepage there. And in the upper right-hand corner, there's a button that says free report. You can click on it and you can get my free report that teaches you how to create powerful free reports, actually. How do you create really engaging free reports that make people want to do business with you? One of the great advantages of the free report is anytime you invite somebody, and this is what I always tell people, invite them to your discovery call. I teach my clients how to design a discovery call that's a real value to the client, but also helps them decide if they want to work with you. But some people will not say yes to that. So after you ask that, if they don't say yes, you say, hey, how about would you like my free report? Then you can email them the free report. And it starts a whole process that I teach, which is a no pressure sequence of how do you email somebody to get them to finally show up to a free strategy session, a discovery call, without, and it starts with the free report. So get the free reports, the very first step to that no pressure way of following up with someone to eventually get them to work with you.
Absolutely. That's a
Yeah.
great thing. I might head over there and have a bit of a squeeze.
Yeah.
All right. Any last words of wisdom, Rodney?
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing I said at the beginning, but it just bears repeating. The teacher gets the authority. So teach, as it should be your number one way of selling, and continually improve that ability to teach. Improve your ability. If you're doing presentations, continually improve until your presentations are through the roof, because the better your presentation, the better the clients you get, the more clients you'll get. And same thing if you're doing article writing. I do articles on, and you see my articles on Medium. If you're going to do that, go that route and keep honing that skill. Get it very, very good. So much communication these days is mediocre. If you continually improve, you will, if you're mediocre today, you will not be mediocre for long. So do that, because it's the easiest way to get clients. When they love your content, I mean, I've had clients who I would write an article, literally, I would talk to them briefly. I would write an article that they didn't know I was writing it for them specifically, and it would get me a client. I would literally write it for them.
Wow.
And then I would post it, for everybody, but it was designed specifically for that client to get them to realize that I could solve their problem or help them solve their problem. So it's a superpower to develop, but just choose one medium. Either choose presentations or choose articles. Choose one and hone that skill. And so that's the number one thing. Obviously, you have to give an offer to present. That's the other thing. But if you really get to if you get really good at any one medium of communication, you will be sought after. So do that. Good advice. Absolutely. Yeah. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me today. And we'll talk again sometime in the future. Awesome. Thank you. Thanks.